My name is Terrace, and I work with Think Tank in the Schedule for Success program. I'm a SAS instructor and coordinator, so that's my main job. I work alongside our partners in the Math 100 program. SAS, as y'all know, most of you, we work to provide supports in students' first semester and first year of math. We mainly work with Math 100. We've also worked with Math 107 and Math 112. So I love math. Specifically, I love math as it relates to visuals and colors and patterns, thinking about it in terms of conversations we can have, and thinking about it more creatively than about being right. I love mistakes in mathematics. And so specifically, that's where my passion comes in, is in talking about math and also just enjoying when I'm wrong. So I came into math from a different pathway. I didn't major in math. I just kind of happened into this career, and so that's part of what I'm going to talk about. I'm also a student. I'm a first-year PhD student in Dr. Salazar's program that she got her degree in the higher education department. I would like to focus my dissertation 5 years from now in math educational equity, specifically in how we can create math lessons in a way that bring more voices to the table and allow for perspectives and different ways of looking at math without it being just one way. Okay. So that's where I'm at, but often what I think people think about when you pick a career is that you pick something that you're really naturally good at and you just pursue that, and there's no problems, and if there are problems then you might be in the wrong career. So my story that I'm going to tell today is just really with the purpose of saying that that's not really how it works. Any career that you pick, it's going to be really hard, and there are going to be moments when you're like, who am I to do this work? Shouldn't it be someone else? Isn't there someone else who's better suited? Even in preparing to tell you this story today, I had so many moments in my mind where I was like, I am not the best person to be a storyteller at this event. Surely there is someone else who could tell a better story. Who am I to share my experience? So I'm going to be brave, and I may not be the best person to tell you the story, but I'm going to tell you my story today. And I hope that in return, when it's your turn, that you tell your story. Okay. So I was in 9th grade, and I tried out for the math team, which is the nerdiest thing that you've probably ever heard of. And I was super excited about being a part of the math team. And so the math teacher who was in charge of the math team decided that the way they would choose who got on the team is that she would teach us how to use a TI-84 calculator, and then she would take us to a competition. Whoever does well is on the team, and whoever doesn't do well is not on the team. So we spent a few weeks learning how to punch in numbers in our TI-84 calculator, and then after that, we went to a competition. And it was a timed exam, which is important, and we'll get back to that. But it was a timed exam, and I did really badly. So the math teacher cut me from the math team. And from that moment on, I decided I was not a math person. And if my friends were taking an AP math class, I joked and made fun of them for doing it and stayed in the easier class. Senior year, I found out I didn't have to take a math class at all, and I was like, great, fantastic. So then I came to college and I decided I'm going to just avoid math to the point that I can. I took a math class at the community college, transferred to U of A to major in anthropology. I was like, I'm going to be an environmental educator, and I'm going to travel the world and talk to people about anthropology and caring for the earth. So I decided to do that to try to avoid math, and I was like, you know what, I should really get an internship so that I can make myself look really good as an environmental anthropologist. So I reached out to Ishkashita Refugee Network and I said, hi, I'd love to work with some people who recently come to the States. Could you set me up with a volunteer opportunity? And they were like, you know what we really need is a math tutor. So I was like, I don't know how to do math, but I really need a volunteer opportunity. So I would meet two Somali refugee students at a coffee shop. They were sisters, donut shop. This is important. So we would get ourselves some donuts and some really gross coffee, and I would be like, hi, I'm with you today, but I don't know how to do this math. We're going to read your textbook together, and we'll figure it out. So we would get some donuts, and there were bees in this donut shop, and so we would just swat the bees and read the textbook, and then we would do the homework together. And that's how I learned Algebra 1 and geometry. So I graduated from U of A with a bachelor's in anthropology, and I got into the Peace Corps doing environmental education, my dream, right? So I moved to Peru, and I lived with a Peruvian family for 2 years. The Peruvian family taught me Spanish. The little brother Anderson would read books with me every night. We'd play basketball, but my main gig was that I worked at a high school. And so every day I'd go to that high school, and it was just really great getting to work with those young folks. And in my second year there were 3 young teachers who came to the high school who had transferred in from a different community. And I got to see how these 3 young teachers made an enormous impact on students in that high school. And I was like, I want to do that for a living. So between my friendship with those teachers and working with teachers, I decided, man, I want to do that, but I didn't major in that. So one pathway to get there is Teach for America in the States, if you're familiar with the program. But the way Teach for America works is they say, you're going to move to this city in the United States, and you're going to do this particular job. And you don't get to pick. They pick it for you. Wait for it. Okay, so my friends who were other Peace Corps volunteers said, man, we better not make you a math teacher. You're terrible at math. And they were joking, but it was true. Like when we had to convert dollars to soles, I always mixed up the conversion rate. Or if we split a cab and I had to figure out my part of the cab, I always messed up how much I owed. So they were joking. But then Teach for America gets back to me. They're like, you're moving to Phoenix and you're going to teach? Math. Math, yes. So at this point, I'm back in the United States. I moved in with my parents in Texas. My mom's here. I started substitute teaching at my old high school. And so I'm substitute teaching at my old high school to get a feel of what it's like to be at a high school in the United States. And in the meantime, I'm watching like every Khan Academy video I possibly can and taking notes and doing those practice exercises that your teachers probably made you do. And so I'm spending hundreds of hours watching YouTube videos on math and taking notes, and shout out to Patrick JMT, who's an excellent YouTuber, and I'm just like trying to figure it out. So I have to pass this test, a timed test, to become a math teacher in the state of Arizona. At this point, I've spent hundreds of hours. I'm 26 years old. I started relearning how to add and subtract fractions. And I took myself all the way up to a little bit of trig and a little bit of calculus, just enough so that I can pass this test. So I go in and I take the test, and it's a timed test, and you got 4 hours to take it. And the clock is counting down the seconds. And I can see that, and it's just making my eyes go blurry. I can't even read the word problem in front of me. My heart's beating so fast, perhaps you can think of your knowledge check this week. Whew, it was just panic mode, but it's a timed test, so I have to finish it in 4 hours. I submit, and I had failed that math test, and I had spent months preparing. So I was devastated, and I'm just rethinking, I'm like, am I in the right field? Should I even be doing this? Like, did I make a mistake? I'm not actually, in the whole narrative, I'm not actually good at math. I shouldn't be doing this. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try this again. So my little brother was in high school, and his girlfriend was in trigonometry. And I'm like, hey, why don't you teach me what you're learning in your trig class? So she would meet me at coffee shops and show me what she had just learned in her trig class. She's teaching me. I'm still spending hours and hours watching Khan Academy and doing practice activities. And I decided, my mom hooked me up with a job, shout out to Mom, with a job as a math tutor on the side. So I'm tutoring math on the side to get better, because if you're teaching, you're remembering things. So I'm teaching basic math to someone who's in high school, who's been struggling more than I have. And I'm doing this work with trigonometry with my brother's girlfriend. And I'm studying on my own. I take 30 more days, and I walk in, and this time I'm pumped. I'm like, I got this. So I sit down, I've got 4 hours to take the test, I blur out the clock, I show my work, I check my work, and I spend the entire 4 hours, and I submit, and I failed it again. And this time, I am crying as I go down the elevator. I sit in my car and I'm crying, and I'm thinking, I'm 26 years old, and I have to go home, and I have to tell my parents that that job I got, I can't go do it. because I just failed that test again that I've spent months living at their house to take. And I can't even bring myself to go home, but I finally do go home. And I go to work the next morning. I had set up an appointment with a a math instructor at where I was subbing at my high school to just get like an informational interview of like, what's it like to be a high school teacher? And she's like, you know what? Like, you should reach out to Dr. Dyer at Texas Tech University. He's a professor and a department head, and I bet he'd be willing to tutor you for free. So I email, hi Dr. Dyer, you don't know me, I don't go to your university, but I'm trying to pass this math test, become a math teacher in the state of Arizona. Is there any way that you'd be willing to help tutor me? Dr. Dyer gets back to me and is like, you know what, I tutor students at the local coffee shop on Friday nights. You're welcome to show up. So I show up and I'm working with those students, and Dr. Dyer agrees to meet me on a Saturday and help me work through my study book. So I'm getting help from Dr. Dyer, and I'm getting help from my little brother's girlfriend, and I'm studying on my own, and I'm working this part-time job, and 30 days later, I'm like, I am gonna rock this thing. And so I go in, and I spend the whole 4 hours, I'm feeling super confident, and I submit, and I go outside, and I'm like, read me those results. I failed it again, y'all! I failed it again, and this time, I'm just absolutely devastated. At this point, it's time to move to Arizona. Like, they're starting teacher training. So my mom, before I leave, she's like, you know what, why don't you just go, shout out to mom number 3, by the way. I said, why don't you just go and see she said to me, why don't you just go see a psychologist about this? So I go see a therapist, and they're like, talk me through how you think about math problems. And I'm like, well, I draw pictures, and I can't just like put something down on paper and go for it. I have to like take time to make sense of what I'm talking about. If they tell me there's a bridge, I gotta draw the bridge. Like, I have to like process the information slowly till I understand it before I can even start that problem. And he said, you have a beautiful mathematical mind. And I was like, what? And he said, but it's going to take you forever to take a timed test. So you need extra testing time, accommodations. So they write me a letter, and I'm going to get 6 hours instead of 4 hours to take this test. And I'm like, whew, the timer was like the most stressful part of this whole thing. But meantime, it's time to move to Arizona. So I pack my truck, my little brother helps me move, I move into ASU dorms, and if you don't know anything about Teach for America, here's how it goes. You are living in a dorm with a bunch of teachers over the summer. You wake up at 4 in the morning, you get yourself ready and all dressed, they put you on a bus, they send you to a school, you teach summer school. So I'm teaching algebra, high school, summer school, waking up at 4 a.m., doing that, teaching all day, coming back, lesson planning the night before, going to bed at 11 p.m., doing it all over again. I was so exhausted that at one point, I'm making my coffee before I get on the bus, and I open up a baggie of sugar, I pour the sugar in the trash can, put the paper in my coffee. Exhausting. And then on the weekends, all of the other teachers at Teacher Boot Camp have already passed this test, but they're volunteering their time at coffee shops, helping me study and passing me study materials. There was a teacher at the high school I was supposed to be teaching at who taught calculus, who drove like 45 minutes across Phoenix to teach me basics of limits so that I could pass this test. So I go in and I'm taking my test. This is like a few weeks into boot camp, and it's a Saturday, and I've got 6 hours to take it. I put a smoothie in a locker so I could go out, 3 hours out, chug the smoothie, come back in. I took the whole 6 hours, and in the last 2 minutes of that exam, there was one more question, and I know I got that question right. I passed that exam by 1 question. For the next 5 years, my job was to work with students who scored on math tests in the bottom 25%. And it is a job that I've never loved more in my life. And that job and my wife getting into grad school led to me being here at U of A and working in the Schedule for Success program. I've never loved what I'm doing more than I'm doing now. I'm in my 7th year of working with math. And every day, there's at least one student when I go into class who says, I struggle with math test taking, and I can honestly say, me too.